Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to the Tamar, Yonah show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Today we are going to be having a guest come on the show who has done some research on Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman in the United States who is planning to come to Israel even though she wants to boycott Israel. She's a BDS person. Boycott, divest, sanctions. This is what she wants to see against Israel. She supports the terrorists, Hamas, etc., etc. Do we let her in the country? We briefly spoke about this yesterday on my show. We're going to go into more detail on exactly who Ilhan Omar, or should I say Ilhan Abdullahi Omar is. Who is she really? How did she immigrate to the United States? What's her story? Who did she marry? Was it kosher? Is her campaign doing things legally? Well, our guest says that he has some explosive information about her, and we invite you to call in. You can agree, you can disagree, you can give your opinion. Feel free to do so. We do live shows to enable people to be able to call in and give their opinions on things. I am of the opinion that Israel should not let her or her friend Rashida Tlaib in. They are here in order to do damage to Israel, and they are going to try to make Israel look bad. Now, there are some people who say, no, we need to let her in, number one, because we're a democracy, and number two, because we can open up their eyes and show them that there is no apartheid here, how Israel really is. But my experience in life is that people only see what they want to see, and that you can't convince these people because they're here on an agenda. Yes, there's always the minute chance that you can, but I don't think so, because these people's voters, their constituents, the people who give them the right, the votes to be able to have power, hate Israel as well. Most of them, I should say. And they don't like the values of Christian, Judeo-Christian values. They're progressives, or they're Muslims that don't like Israel. Maybe some do. But the majority of their voters like what they're doing. I say don't let them in the country. But who is she really? We're going to find out.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, you are listening to the Tamar Yonah show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Today we are talking about Ilhan Omar. Who is she really? Or I should say Ilhan Abdullahi Omar. How did she immigrate to the United States? Who did she marry? Is her campaign doing things legally? Well, our guest says that he has some explosive information about Ilhan Omar. And I want to remind everybody that you can agree, you can disagree, you can call into the show, you can give your opinion. We want to hear from you. Our phone numbers are on the top of our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And you can also join us in the chat room. That's the orange button on our homepage or on the player that you're listening to the show from, if you're listening to from our website. If you're listening in through TuneIn or any other place, then you'll want to go to our website at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com and click on the orange button there. Barry Shaw, our guest, is the international Public Diplomacy Director at the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. His books that he's written include Fighting Hamas, BDS and Anti-Semitism, BDS for Idiots, and more. They are available on Amazon or at the Stymatsky bookstores here in Israel. He writes, speaks, organizes, and motivates Israeli activists with new facts, arguments, and methods to beat the anti-Israel mob. And you can visit his website at theviewfromisrael.com. Welcome to the show, Barry Shaw.
Thank you, Tamar. Good morning.
Good morning. So you've been researching the background of Ilhan Omar in advance of her planned visit to Israel, and I do hope that Israel says no to letting her and Rashida Tlaib inside. But you say that you have found some startling facts that you found about Ilhan Omar, and that she is not Ilhan Omar. That's kind of strange. You're saying that Ilhan Omar is not Ilhan Omar. Explain to us why.
Right. But before I start, I want to make a preface to this. I am not going after Ilhan Omar because she's a woman, because she's a woman of color, because of her religious affiliations, whether it's Muslim or anything. Nothing to do with this. I'm going after Ilhan Omar because Ilhan Omar came after me and you and anybody Jewish, and she's coming after Israel. Her visit to Israel will be for one purpose only, that is to meet people who can say nasty things against Israel and go back to America and from the seats of power condemn Israel as a witness. And the tour guide will not be the Israeli Foreign Ministry, it will be Rashida Tlaib. So any talk about, well, the Israeli government should do this, that, or the other, forget about it, because she isn't there to visit the Knesset or coming in peace whatsoever. So I think it's legitimate, because we're in a battle here, to look for the weak points of our enemy. And Ilhan Omar is an enemy. So we find this in her multiple marriages, immigration frauds, her marriage frauds, her tax frauds, all legal things that are hopefully beginning to be investigated in America. But to answer your question, I dug into this and I've come to the conclusion that Ilhan Omar is not Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is in fact Ilhan Noor Saeed Elmi. That is the family name. That was the family name in Somalia. And I think you have to go back to Somalia to really find out how Ilhan Omar developed her political leanings today that she is executing within the American Congress, within the seats of power in America. And don't forget, she sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mm-hmm. So how did she get the name Ilhan Omar? It was because, you have to go back again to Somalia. The Omar family and the Saeed Elmi family lived in Somalia. The Omars were the first ones to reach America because after the Civil War, and they fled Somalia, the Ilhan family went to Kenya, from Kenya into America, but they did not come into America officially as the Saeed Elmi family. They came in as the Omars. How was that? Because the Omar family were already there, knew of the Saeed Elmi family, and invited them in or requested them to come in as an extended members of the Omar family. And that's how she has the Omar name.
So you're saying that there's no blood relationship?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Was it legal that she changed her name to Omar?
She didn't change. No, it was illegal. It
illegal.
was a way of defrauding the American immigration system.
Okay, so she came in as if she were part of the Omar family, as if she was a blood relative, and a refugee, and that's how she got in.
At all. The Omars knew the Said Elmis because these two families were working in Somalia in support of the communist Islamist dictator Siad Barre. You have to understand what was going on in Somalia.
How can they be both Islamic and communist? It contradicts each other.
Okay. Well, this is part of the research. You see, what's going on here is that there are things going on in the States right now, which I'll talk about later, delving into her marriages and to the immigration fraud and the tax frauds. That's fine. But there's something far deeper here, far more political. Let me just go through it very quickly. In 1969, in Somalia, a guy called Siad Barre seized power in a coup d'etat. And he built a one-party regime. It was built on a mix of communism and a local form of political Islam. Yet if I quote the United Nations profile of Siad Barre, they said the theocratic underpinning of the state ideology combined aspects of the Quran with the influence of Marx, Lenin, Mao, and Mussolini. But Siad Barre was pragmatic in its application. He said that socialism is not a religion. This is Siad Barre's statement. It is a political principle to organize government and manage production. An organized socialist government managing production is the underpinning of the new left of the Democratic Party, including Ilhan Omar. Now, so I asked myself, what part did Ilhan Omar, but forget she's a young girl, she's not implicated in this at all, apart from the fact from being under the influence of her father. So what was her father? Ilhan Omar describes her father as the teacher of teachers in Somalia. What does that mean in a one-state dictatorship? Well, when Barre took power, he brought into effect an indoctrination campaign. He introduced a national introduction campaign. He appointed teacher trainers whose job it was to indoctrinate people into the government-run education system in the Quranic Marxist-Leninist ideology. And this radical left red-green political agenda could be increasingly found both in Britain with the Labour Party and Corbyn's association with things like the Islamic Human Rights Council and things like this. And now in America, with Ilhan Omar goes on fundraising junkets, not for the Democratic Party, but for CARE, the American branch of the Muslim Brotherhood and a co-conspirator for Hamas. And in Somalia, civil servants were required to attend reorientation courses that combined professional training with the regime's political indoctrination, and anyone found incompetent or politically resistant to that was fired. And who was leading this indoctrination campaign? I'm trying to get the actual link that links Said Elmi, Ilhan Omar's father, to this position. But however, she has described him as a teacher of teachers. When you are a teacher in a dictatorship, you are actually part of the propaganda and the indoctrination campaign of what turned out to be a genocidal, murderous, criminal dictatorship. And as such, if you are that close to the leadership, you are surely also a war criminal. So,
but that's her father.
What I'm doing now is I'm in contact with people and organizations I can't discuss on air right now, but I'm trying to get the link of who was in charge of the indoctrination campaign in Somalia under the Barre dictatorship. And the feeling is that it was her father. Let me put it another way, that really I pick up on the clues. When Ilhan Omar won her state and went into Congress, her sister, called Sarah Noor, said in August the 10th, 2016 about, besides being an awesome dad, it turns out he's also a great political strategist and fundraiser. Now, where does this refugee from Somalia suddenly turn into a great political strategist?
Okay,
it
you
has
know
to
what?
be based on his.
Hold it right there. We'll leave that question for the next segment. We're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with Love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with Love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We are live if you are listening on Monday morning between 7 to 8 a.m. or if it's between midnight to 1 a.m. Sunday night. That means that you are listening live and you can call into the show and you can weigh in on the topic. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a comment, a question? Feel free to call in. Our numbers are on our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Our guest is Barry Shaw, and he is a book author, an Israeli activist, and more. You can visit his website at theviewfromisrael.com. And Barry is here telling us about the background of Ilhan Omar, the U.S. Congresswoman, in advance of her planned visit to Israel. And Barry, I just want to just make something clear for our listeners. I asked you during the break if Ilhan Omar came to the United States as a quote-unquote refugee under refugee status as a minor or as an adult, knowing that she's breaking the law, and also if we can really hang the sins of her father on her. So take it from there.
Okay, yeah. Well, certainly not with regard to the involvement of her father and the Omar in the regime of Siad Barre, the genocidal dictatorship in Somalia. She can't be involved because she was only 8-9 years old. But you know, I'm going on clues that were actually given to me by her and her sister and other things, and investigating just exactly what her father did in Somalia. Look, let me give you another clue. Ilhan Omar made a statement saying about, you know, how she came to be a refugee and everything. And she said she lived a privileged life in Somalia and suddenly it came to an end. I want to tell you, Tamar, and your listeners, that nobody in Somalia at that time, the one-party system being led by a brutal dictator that killed, executed, and tortured any opposition, lived a privileged life in a secure compound unless they were close to the regime. Nobody in Somalia under Siad Barre lived a protected and privileged life if you were in opposition. So I have a question for Ilhan Omar, for her to come out and tell everybody which side of the civil war was her father on. Was he the part of the brutal dictatorship, or was he part of the opposition, the people? Based on what she has said and what her sister has said, gives us the clues that her father was on the side of the dictatorship.
All right, let's talk about her marriage. There's some talk, I've been seeing it in headlines, that she married her brother. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, listen, before I'll talk about the marriage, and remind me after to talk about the name the Omar name that we started off because, the giveaway for this is the fact, I'll talk about it now, quite frankly, because Ilhan Omar is the only member of the family who calls herself Omar. Her siblings, her brothers and her sisters, plural, call themselves Saeed Hersey. Why doesn't Ilhan call herself Saeed Hersey? You have to understand about what happened. Ilhan's mother had died, and the family was in Kenya, and her father took her and another sister, Sarah, to America. But the other part of the family went to the United Kingdom under the name of Saeed Elmi. Okay, so let's start talking about the marriages. In 2002, Ilhan Omar, let's call her that for now, marries a guy called Ahmed Hersey, and she married him in a faith-based Sharia law ceremony. She did not marry him legally. There was no marriage certificate. So she had a faith-based marriage, but not a legal American marriage, and the couple had 2 children together. Now, 6 years later, and she was 19 years old at that time. 6 years later, in 2008, she separates from Hersey in accordance with Sharia law. She didn't need to divorce him officially because she wasn't married to him officially. But a year later, in 2009, she marries a guy called Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, a British citizen of Somali descent, legally in a Minnesota registry office. So she's married to this guy, Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, who carries the name of her family, a British citizen, and that part of the family went to Britain of Somali descent, of which they were, legally in a Minnesota registry. Documents together show that she was living, wait for this, with her legal husband, Saeed Elmi, in the same house as Ahmed Hersey and their 2 children.
So she's living with 2 husbands, basically.
Yeah. Now, there's something we discovered later that I'll come to later on if you want. The guy she married, the Ahmed Elmi, is gay. Not that I got anything about gays, against gays. Why would she marry a gay guy? She claims he wasn't a brother. But basically, this guy came over, married legally. They went to study in the same campus that she studied, the North Dakota State University. He was studying art. She studied political science. And then 2 years later, they divorced. However, they had a Sharia divorce, not a legal divorce. And Elmi moves back to London. It's complicated, isn't it? So she married him legally in a civil wedding, but divorced him with a Sharia divorce. And then later on, she said she reconciled with Hersey, a faith-based husband, who she divorced from. In 2012, she has a 3rd child with Hersey. It wasn't until 2017, when she was running to office, she rushed to obtain a legal divorce with Elmi. She claimed that she hadn't seen him since 2011, but some people took screenshots of photographs of them together, both in America and also in London. So she lied about her divorce proceedings. And in 2018, because she was running for Congress and she needed to kosher everything up, so to speak, she married Hersey. They are legally married. Now, as of last week, there are stories that she has separated and she's getting a divorce from Hersey. But this cleaning up of the act was done because she was running for Congress and she needed to clean things up. But there are too many clues hanging around. And what has been happening here is that the media, the compliant media, refused to investigate it. I mean, this is the same media that was investigating and hounding Trump for non-existent Russian collusion, and yet we have a story here with evidence, and they refuse to investigate it. Don't expect the Democratic Party to investigate it either. It's too embarrassing for them. However, Judicial Watch, run by Tom Fitton, who managed to extract documents from the Department of Justice and the FBI over the illegal activities of people that were chasing after the Trump campaign and the Trump administration to create this phony Russian collusion thing, has now lodged a legal complaint to Congress to investigate Omar's immigration, marriage, and tax fraud. Now, this is where your listeners can get involved, because Steve Drazkowski, who is the Minnesota State Representative, has set up an online Omar Truth, which is to petition the Ethics Committee to investigate extensive allegations of ethical and legal misconduct by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Now, I can tell your listeners that as of us talking on the radio this morning, they require 50,000 signatures. And as of us talking now, they're up to just beyond 42,000. So if your listeners want to get involved in calling for a congressional investigation into Ilhan Omar's misconduct, they should go to omartruth.com. That's omartruth.com. And sign the petition.
Yeah, I think that's going to help just as much as it did when people were trying to get hold of Barack Obama's college records and his birth certificate, but whatever.
Yeah, but I want to say, Tamar, I think I spoke to you off air that I said at the time that I thought this was confined to U.S. citizens only, but apparently I went on just before the show began, and it's not. It's global. So anybody anywhere in the world can sign up to it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this is, I'm not going to lie and say this is kind of confusing. So basically what you're saying is that her marriages are under question. Her name is under question. Her father's support of a communist and dictatorship and ruthless regime also needs to be further looked into. And of course, today her politics, which is against U.S. policy, which is Israel as a friend and an ally of the United States. She wants to see the destruction of Israel by her actions, by her being involved in CARE, being supportive of the terrorists, being a BDS supporter, and her intentions to come here and try to further her agenda. So this is all very interesting. When we get back, we're going to finish up with her and find out what we can do. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Our guest is Barry Shaw. He is talking to us about who really is Ilhan Omar. Is she who she says she is? What is her background? And the investigations that are going on by just the common people, because they want to know. They don't like what she's doing, and they are they are suspicious because apparently it looks like she has broken the law in a few cases. And so, Barry, this is the last segment of the show. What do you want to leave us with?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to tell your listeners that this investigation is taking me deeper and deeper and bringing me in contact with people I'd never thought I'd be in contact with, including one or two people who attend White House briefings. I'm trying to be in contact with people who have files from the CIA about what was happening, who were the people close to the top of the Said Barry regime in Somalia. So there's more truths to come out soon. But I want to end with this. Why, and it's more questions. Why is Ilhan Omar the only one in her family who uses the name Omar? Why does she deny she has a brother when she has two brothers, one called Mohammed and the other one called Ahmed? Why is she the only one who calls her name Omar, where her sister Leela calls herself Saeed Elmi, her sister Sarah calls herself Saeed Elmi. Sarah is now working in Kenya under that family name. Ahmed uses the name Saeed Elmi, only she doesn't. What is she hiding? What is she hiding about her activities of her father in Somalia? Was he on the side of the dictatorship, the brutal dictatorship, or the side of the people? It was clear she was on the side of the dictatorship because she blames America for the civil war in Somalia. America wasn't to blame for the civil war in Somalia. The dictator Siad Barre was responsible for that. Why did she call her father the teacher of teachers and her sister Layla congratulate her father for being a genius of a strategic political strategist? If this man had come from Somalia with no knowledge, experience, or professional ties to being a political strategist. If he was a political strategist in Somalia, it must have been surely on the side of the regime. So there's elements of criminality here because the people associated with the Barry regime are basically international war criminals. You know, you can be a war criminal not only for murdering people, but also for incitement, indoctrination, like Dr. Goebbels, for instance, never killed anybody for Nazi Germany, but he was a war criminal, as was Lord Haw, for instance. So there are a lot of questions. There are more questions than answers here. And I think it's important we get the answers. Now, on certain things, I'm happy to say in the last couple of weeks, things are beginning to move with Judicial Watch going to Congress and also Steve Droskowski's Omar Truth. I would ask your listeners again to go onto the website, sign the petition if you support it. And why it's important, because Ilhan Omar is an enemy of the Jewish people, and she is an enemy of Israel. An enemy is a legitimate target.
So what we're seeing is a person in the Congress, again, under questionable legalities, going over the law, and it needs to be investigated. The fact that she is anti-Israel, she wants to see, when I say BDS, we're talking about people want to see the destruction of Israel, basically. And this is a person who is doing that, and she needs to be investigated, not only for the damage that she wants to do to a whole country here, an ally of the United States, but also of the American people themselves. And you seem to have a lot of facts here, and I'm sure that other people who are who want to see an investigation about her do as well. And we'll have to wait and see what's going on.
Can I add one sentence?
Yes.
I want to repeat again what I said at the beginning. I'm not going after Ilhan Omar because she's a person of color. I'm going after Ilhan Omar for one of the reasons, because I'm going after what we call the radical left red-green political agenda. That's the color I'm going after. It's the red of the communist Marxists, and it's the green of the political Islamists that are in America right now and in Britain right now and want to usurp power by all means possible. This is what's happening in America with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and some other people like that.
Barry, let's go to a caller we have joining us. David. Hi, David. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Washington State in the U.S.
Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you, Tamar. I agree with everything that he says, but unless she's caught literally with a smoking gun, it's not going to matter. I mean, the press is on her side. The Democrats run the House. It's just how it is right now. I mean, and you bring up the point about the Somali civil war. Most Americans don't even know where Somalia is, or that there was a civil war there.
That's a good point.
So it's all great.
Right, okay.
It's all great stuff. I mean, I'm not disputing what you say or anything, but I'm just saying how it is here. I mean, we have the president who is battling this every day. Battling the press and this every day, and we have this a representative from this district, and it's all Somalis in it, and it's stacked in her favor. But there's really, it's all interesting information about this got married to this guy, this guy's gay. It's all interesting information. But, where is the big crime she committed? She committed, fraud getting in the U.S. I would say that a good number of the immigrants coming in the U.S. are doing that too.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, it's just like how the system is right now here.
All right, interesting point.
I appreciate all you did. And go ahead.
Go ahead, finish your sentence.
No. I was just saying that I agree, but I'm very frustrated with the situation. And I think most Americans understand what's going on, and we really can't do anything about it. I live in Washington. I don't vote in that district, obviously. I can't vote her out. I can sign 1 million petitions, and nothing really happens with that. It's just how it is, and it is very frustrating. I know.
All right, Barry, what
for us in the U.S. right now?
Barry, what do you have to say about that? Because it could be so simple. They can bring up these questions, and if she is innocent, she should be able to have answers to these questions, and then just finish the whole, conspiracy theories against her and etc. Just answer questions. No, this is what happened with my marriage. This is this is who my father. This was my real name. Blah blah blah. Just come clean, and then put an end to all of these accusations against her.
All right, but what you have here, I mean, you listen there made some very good points, but you can't let the ignorance of the American public sway the people to actually get real answers to very varied questions. And if Ilhan Omar and her family are illegal immigrants into America, and she is guilty of immigration, marriage, and tax laws, because she also filled out her tax forms with when she was married to Hersey, but Hersey wasn't her legal husband. Elmi was. So she was doing tax fraud there. Now you have somebody sitting in Congress who is guilty of all these tax laws, immigration laws, and everything. Had that been a Republican, I think it would be the leading item on CNN, for instance. Mm-hmm. And I agree with your listener that there's a political bias in the media over there which covers up all these things. However, if you have Judicial Watch and you have this state representative from Minnesota complaining to Congress, it surely has to receive public attention, and certain answers have to be received. You can't have somebody, for instance, who's sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee who has all these clouds hanging over her. And why the issue to do with her father and the Omars have to do with it? Because if the family, not Ilhan Omar, but the fathers, for instance, of both, have any stain of being connected with a brutal genocidal dictatorship in Somalia, and they're sheltering in plain sight in America, there have to be questions asked there about their involvement, and maybe, just maybe, the International Criminal Court would be interested in hearing about this.
Well, Barry, you've brought up some interesting things here, and it needs to be investigated. And I think that she should just answer the questions, and then we put an end to it. There's no reason to look any more into it if she does have legitimate answers for this. Where can people? We're just coming to the end of the show, and I want to ask people who want to know more, who want to get involved, or who want to know what they can do. What can they do?
All right, but before I end, I want to end on one thing. With regard to, in advance of the visit here, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, of Ilhan, Omar, and Rashid Tlaib,
you have less than 60 seconds. Go.
This. I want to tell you, it will be damaging to Israel. I can tell you, I have it on authority because I've been in contact with the Strategic Affairs Ministry in Israel, and the fact that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as he said, probably under diplomatic pressure from the United States, that her visit must be permitted. Then it will come. But I want to tell you, it will be, in a sense, damaging in a sense to Israel. But when they go back and they start spouting their lies around Israel from the Congress, in my opinion, this will be more damaging to the Democratic Party than it will be to Israel itself. How can people keep an update on this? I would say look for me on Facebook. Look to join me on Facebook. Keep watching on Facebook, because as I get more
Barry
information,
Shaw,
those things there.
Thank you for coming on the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. Be well.
And
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.